Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today we are starting another tournament. We are looking at the Sutton Coldfield League Challenge. This was an expanded League Challenge, which means we're going from all the way from black and white through to the recently released set of Breakthrough. Little tournament today, 16 players, 5 rounds, best of 1, but we got some good players and some good games, so settle in, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy this round from Sutton Coldfield League Challenge. Single game, 30 minutes, black and white to Breakthrough. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so on the left here we have Corey Kirkham. We saw him in, I think it was the previous round, if I remember correctly. He is going to be playing fighting bats. We've already seen his deck. He's got a Dedenne, he's got Horlucha, etc. And on the right we have a lovely chap called Ben. I want to say Ben Rollerson. If I've got your name wrong, Ben, I sincerely apologise. But a lovely chap, and once again I picked the game I wanted to have on stream, and both players straight away went, yep, not a problem at all. So thank you very much to them, and of course to the lovely Joanna Shirley and Glenn Pugh, who were running this tournament and allowed us to record. And they didn't even just allow us to record, they set us up a little table off to the side where we could record. The lighting isn't quite as bright as it could be, but it will be fine. Now, because I'm going to explain it to you. The reason we got this particular game on stream is because I went to Ben after his previous round. I went, Ben, I'm having you on stream next round because I love your deck and I want to have it up on the stream. I say stream, it's not actually a stream, I don't stream, I record and put them up later, but I call it the stream because it's easier, and Ben agreed, and Ben is playing the Sableye Garbodor deck, a wonderful deck. He uses Garbodor, who has the ability Garbotoxin, which turns off all of the abilities, and we've also got Sableye, who basically uses Junk Hunt to recover 2 trainers from the discard. And we can see you starting with a Sableye there. And you basically use things like Trick Shovel to discard the top card of your opponent's deck, Hammers to get rid of their energy, and essentially, you basically win by deck out. Some of these Sableye decks play lasers, some don't. I don't believe Ben's is. So, it looks like Ben's going first. He's got a Trubbish on the bench, Sableye in the active, which is literally his perfect start. And we get a Bunnelby down on the bench. Remember, Bunnelby has got both the ability to discard cards from your opponent's deck, which you generally want to do when they're out of energy and can't do anything. And you can recover cards from your discard pile into your deck. So we saw Ben use a Trick Shovel there. Now what it actually allows you to do is look at the top card of either player's deck, and you have the opportunity, if you so wish, to discard that card, though you don't have to. But clearly Ben is playing it to help his opponent deck out. So when Ben plays that Trick Shovel, it's not really much of a decision looking to be made there. It's very simply a case of, I'm discarding the top card of your deck. It just so happens that he discarded a Colrus, which is a very useful card for Corey and a very nice card for Ben to discard. It basically allows you to shuffle your hand in and draw the number of cards equal to all the bench Pokemon, yours and your opponent's. Although, of course, discarding a supporter early game allows your opponent to VS Seeker for it. So there is a weird situation, potentially, and Ben there, you saw he played an Ultra Ball to get a Shaman and used it to draw an extra 5 cards. Draws until he's got 6 cards in his hand. There is a potential situation where you actually play the Trick Shovel, discard the Colrus, and your opponent has nothing, but then has a VS Seeker to reuse the Colrus. Although they would have drawn into it anyway, so a fairly moot point, to be honest. So we see a Trainer's Mail coming down here. It allows Ben to look at the top 4 cards of his deck and choose any trainer card apart from another Trainer's Mail, put it into his hand. He's gone for an N. So he's going to try and use that to maybe refresh his hand. I don't believe he's played a supporter yet. We see there he had a Team Flare Grunt that tries to discard energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, and so on. Now he plays down an energy. That's a slightly dodgy play, potentially. If nothing else, because we expect these Bats decks, Fighting Bats and Manectric Bats, and we see the N does go down. Both players have 6 prizes remaining, so both players will draw 6 cards. Most of these Bat decks, as a general rule, they tend to play 2 Enhanced Hammer. Now you saw Ben puts down a Blend Energy, It's kind of like a rainbow energy, but it only works for 4 types, but Ben only needs it to be dark energy. So, rainbow energy puts down a damage counter, blend energy doesn't. Blend energy is only 4 types, not all types, but it really doesn't matter because he only needs it for dark. I suppose he could use it for Psychic if he was desperate for the Trubbish and Garbodor. I suppose colourless on the Bunnelby, but either way, it really doesn't make a difference. He just doesn't have to put down the damage counter there. But it's slightly awkward because there is a possibility that Corey is able to draw an Enhanced Hammer here and straight away gets rid of the energy on the Sableye, forcing Ben to have another one to use Junk Hunt next turn. So we shall see if that comes to fruition. A Fighting Stadium comes down. That's going to be largely irrelevant. And a Focus Sash, but he puts it down because he needs to draw more cards with Shaman. He really doesn't have very much at the moment. He does have that Scoop Up Cyclone, which in an emergency he could use to reuse a Shaman, but he has got an N. So the Focus Sash does nothing to a non-fighting Pokemon, but he's just got it down on the field. Similarly, that Fighting Stadium is likely to do very little, although Ben does, because it only adds damage to EXs, not to non-EXs, but there's a Shaman on Ben's side of the field, and Corey, he's going to be playing Horluchas that he can use to try and KO that Shaman, so not completely useless. Just, needed more cards. Now he's got another Zubat, and that's good. Because Corey here, he's going to need to take KOs. So if he can use those bats to take some easy KOs, that's going to really, really help him. Using a combination of Golbats and Crobats and attacking with Golbats and Crobats really will help him to take down some of those Sableyes. And that's going to be the really big problem here. Is that Ben is going to play Prize Denial. And that's what Ben's deck does. Now, because we are in Expanded here, so we do have A-Specs. Ben's A-Spec of choice is Life Dew, which he is going to be using to try and stop Corey taking prizes. Now, we do see a Hammerhead there from the Landorus. Now, we did see that Ben had a tool, the flare tool, Headringer. There we go. He did have a Headringer. It must have been before he had the. Must have been before he had the played the N, which got rid of it. So we do see a come down, a Trainer's Mail come down, got him an Ultra Ball. Now I'm just looking up the wording of Life Dew. It's a tool. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize card. That's knocked out in any way, so it's not something like a Focus Sash that can be gotten round using poison damage from lasers or bats. It has to be, just knocked out and you don't take a prize. So Ben is going to be trying to make sure that he's got Life Dew on all of his Sableye, so that when the Sableye gets knocked out, he can Junk Hunt the Life Dew back, and at the very least, prevent a prize every other KO. Now, he does have to get rid of a Super Rod there, but of course he can get it back with Junk Hunt, which is going to be useful, of course. He's going to need to reuse all of his Sableyes. And as a Rosic goes down there, but he can use VS Seeker. And remember, Ben can Junk Hunt for VS Seeker to essentially reuse any supporter as much as he likes. Now he gets a Garbodor, but remember that Garbotoxin ability is not activated unless he has a tool attached, and he currently doesn't. Crushing Hammer comes down there, but a Tails means that energy attached to the Landorus is not discarded. So a bit of luck in this turn from Corey. The Crushing Hammer comes up Tails, and the Garbodor doesn't have a tool attached. Of course, if the Garbodor has a tool attached, that means that when Corey gets out those Golbats and Crobats, he cannot use the ability to put damage down. Now, he does, however, have a Sycamore, which is incredibly useful. The Blend Energy, I should mention, also counts as Grass Energy. So you saw Ben's Virizion EX there. It means you can make your Sableye immune to lasers, to any special conditions. Here comes another Crushing Hammer, and Oh, it looks like another Tails. Oh, we got the Float Stone there for the Garbodor, which is incredibly useful. Zubat. Oh, that's a nice card to discard. Gets rid of that there, Zubat. Float Stone is going to come down in a second, which will activate that Garbodor. Just, I suppose, making sure he doesn't want to play any more abilities himself before he does so. Another Sableye with another energy. Oh, he draws into the Head Ringer. That means that the cost of all of Landorus's attacks is increased by 1, which is pretty handy. There comes a Float Stone to turn off all abilities, except, of course, for Garbodors. And Junk Hunt comes down, and Ben gets to take 2 cards from his discard pile. Now, presumably, he's going to go for a VS Seeker to reuse a Team Flare Grunt to guarantee that he gets rid of that energy. And he gets a Crushing Hammer so that he's got at least a 50% chance of getting rid of all of the... Oh! And a Getsis comes down from Corey here. Now that's incredibly useful. He gets to look at Ben's hand and all of the items go back into Ben's deck, get shuffled in, and Corey draws as many cards as Ben shuffles in. Crucially, however, that means that all Ben has is 1 Sableye and 1 energy in his entire hand. Of course, that is less of an issue for Ben than most people. Ben can just use a Junk Hunt to recover whatever he wants next turn. But it means that on this upcoming turn, Ben cannot use that Flare Grunt, I'm assuming that's what he was going to do, to get rid of the energy, and he can't use a Crushing Hammer to get rid of any energy that might be put down. Now, Corey uses an AZ there. Wait, that's 2 supporters in 1 turn. Corey, you cheated, man. I'm pretty sure that was an AZ. Yes, because he discarded the cards. He played a Getsis to make Ben shuffle his hand back in. Then he played an AZ in the same turn. That should be picked up, but we have no table judge. So a huge mistake here. And again, at the end of this video, I'm not going to make a huge deal. I'm going to double check at the end of this video just to make sure that is what happened. But I'm fairly sure Corey played a Getsis and then an AZ in the very same turn there. Now, it's not completely game-breaking in reality, but it has given Corey a huge advantage. So we just saw a Trainer's Mail there for a Team Flare Grunt. And we see there he's got the AZ and he's got the Getsis. And they're both in his discard pile right next to each other. What that's effectively done is it's meant that the Landorus, instead of having an energy and a Head Ringer, has no energy and a Muscle Band, which isn't the biggest deal ever. But while it had the Head Ringer on him, it guaranteed he couldn't have a Muscle Band. Now, the energy is about the same. He still needs 1 energy to Hammerhead as he would anyway. But what it means is that Ben can't get rid of the energy while he's got a Head Ringer on there. And it means he hasn't taken away that... And he's got the Muscle Band on. And this is one of the problems, ladies and gentlemen, when you use these utility supporters. Now, okay. It has now had no material effect on the game, really, because Corey had no supporter. He's already got a tool on him. Because he would have used it that turn. So had Corey not double supported, he would have used the AZ to pick up the Landorus on the following turn. So it's not actually had any effect on the game whatsoever, because Corey would have just picked up the Landorus, the energy would have been gone either way, and then he would have put the Muscle Band down because he would have saved it for the AZ. Okay, so a big mistake from Corey. Corey, you should be ashamed of yourself, but the good news is, I hope I explained it properly, it has had literally no effect whatsoever on the outcome of this game. We see Ben there playing a Trainer's Mail for an Enhanced Hammer. As I've said, all that would have happened is Corey would have not played the AZ, waited 1 turn, and done exactly the same thing. It's not like Ben's doing damage or playing lasers, so there's no kind of damage or anything. Literally nothing changed here. Because Ben didn't even get screwed over by playing the AZ. All Ben would have done is try and discard his energy, which happened anyway when he played the AZ. So we lucked out there. And now we are back. So I'm not going to mention that again, but I will have a quick look at the end to make sure that is what happened. So Corey here, he's in a bit of a bind. He has nothing. He has no energy on the board. Now he's bringing up a Shaman here. All that's really doing is trying to buy a turn, trying to slow Ben down for a turn. Now one thing that Corey needs to do very carefully here is make sure that that he's not playing too many cards, because of course Ben is trying to deck him out. So, because if you cannot draw a card at the beginning of your turn in the Pokemon trading card game, then you lose. So what Corey needs to do here is just play as few cards as possible while trying to get set up. Oh, and Startling Megaphone comes down to get rid. Oh, that's just mean. Startling Megaphone discards. Now, there's another mistake here. Boys, you are not paying enough attention. That Startling Megaphone gets rid of all of the... and again, it's probably going to have very little effect, but the Startling Megaphone gets rid of all tools attached to each of your defending opponent's Pokemon. Oh, it's not a Startling Megaphone, it's a Tool Scrapper. I'm an idiot. My apologies. That's on me, ladies and gentlemen. I need to pay more attention. Tool Scrapper allows you to discard up to 2 from your opponent or yourself. And of course, the reason why Ben plays Tool Scrapper over Startling Megaphone, it's up to 2 Pokemon tool cards attached to Pokemon in play, either players. And of course, that's the reason why Ben plays a Tool Scrapper, because he doesn't want to have to get rid of the... He doesn't want to have to get rid of the head ringer. So that one was on me. I do apologise. So, Ben's still in a commanding position. Now, what he really needs to do here is mill. Corey's got nothing. If Ben mills, not only does that get him closer to winning the game, because that's his win condition, without Laser and taking prizes through poison knockouts, which is what Laser would do, Ben's only win condition is deck out. Now, we didn't know until we got there, single game 30 minutes is not good for this Sableye deck. What you really want to be playing here is... Oh, that's annoying. Ooh, that's not the end of the world, but it's still, it's an energy and a Sycamore. That's pretty good discards from Ben there. In 45, 50-minute best of 3, you can generally win one game in 50 minutes. But that's not what you can do in 30-minute best of 1. It can be quite hard to really finish it in 30 minutes. So we see Ben here, he's just continuing to mill. There goes a Muscle Band. Another mill comes down. That's another Sycamore. Ben, you are a horrible, horrible person. And then he's junk hunting again. Could be an argument here for trying to use Bunnelby, but of course it's really a moot point at this stage because Ben's getting the 2 discards every turn. Now, we do see the Ultra Ball come down here. Of course, there's no reason here for, that Shaman is... Now, I don't think he can retreat that Zubat because of the Garbodor. Zubat has a retreat cost of 1. The ability says if it's got no energy attached to it, it has no retreat cost. But of course, the ability is turned off by Garbodor's Garbotoxin. I think we saw Corey realise that there. And that is one of the downsides. Now, that Zubat is generally seen as the better Zubat. It's got 40 HP, not 50. But it's... Everyone refers to it as having free retreat, but that's not strictly true. It only has free... Oh! He gets rid of a VS Seeker and an energy. Ben is just being mean here. The Zubat doesn't have free retreat. It has free retreat by virtue of the ability, which is often the same thing, but when there is a Garbodor in play, ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely not the same thing. So Corey is in a world of hurt here, but the big question is, can Ben deck him out in time? Now, one thing I think we should really give props to Corey for here, he is not slow playing. He is just playing out, and there comes the dreaded head ringer. Corey essentially needs 1 energy on the Landorus and then an energy on the Zubat to retreat it to get the KO. Golbat and... Oh my goodness, that would have been a useful card. Because that Scoop Up Cyclone essentially just allows you to pick up a Pokemon and all the cards attached to it. he could use that to get the Zubat out of the active, or he could use it to get a head ringer off the Landorus. So that's an incredibly big discard from Ben there. Because as it stands, Corey's got an energy on the Landorus, but with the head ringer, he needs 2 energies just to get an attack off. Oh, and there comes the Enhanced Hammer. So he's going to want to use that on the active Sableye, get rid of that energy. If Ben doesn't have an energy next turn, this game could get a bit more interesting, but it looks like he does. So he needs another energy on the Landorus, and an energy to retreat the Zubat. And of course, we know Ben is playing all kinds of cards to get rid of energy, and another energy comes down into the disc. I think that's 3 strong energy that have gone down from Trick Shovels in the last few turns, if I remember correctly. So that's quite big. Corey here, there's just nothing he can do. He's just sitting there, essentially losing 3 cards from his deck a turn, and Ben is just playing the long game here. Now, this is where the weakness, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, Ben, I believe he finished in 2nd place in this tournament. Both of these players made the top 4. They're both exceptional players. And here comes the Crushing Hammer to try and get rid of the fighting energy on the bench. Is that 0 for 3 on Crushing Hammers? That's pretty harsh. Ben is not having a huge amount of luck in this game, but it doesn't matter. His deck is doing what it's supposed to do. And when your deck does it, you don't need the luck. Okay, he doesn't have the hammers, but he's got the Team Flare Grunt. He's using the Trick Shovels very effectively. So even though he's not seeing the luck of the coin flips, it doesn't matter because his deck is so well constructed that he doesn't need those coin flip luck. He can actually get by without just getting lucky. Now, I'm not saying this is a weakness. I'm putting this as an alternate argument. Now, especially in 30 minutes best of 1, it's hard to deck your opponent out just in a time standpoint. So the alternative way to play this deck, and it's clearly the way Ben has chosen not to, is to play Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank City Gym. And of course, you keep using Sableye's Junk Hunt to reuse Hypnotoxic Laser, as every Darkrai deck did back in the day when it were big. And essentially, what you would do is just always leave your opponent's active Pokemon poisoned, hopefully taking 30 damage per turn from the lasers. And that way, you can essentially, and against things like Landorus, it takes 6 in-between turns, 3 full turns across the table, to KO a Landorus with poison. And using things like Team Flare's Grunt, Crushing Hammer, and Headringer, you can really stop your opponent's Landorus attacking. In a matchup like this, where Corey's Horluchas can't really do anything, we saw him dump 2 of them right at the beginning of the game with an Ultra Ball, because they can only attack EXs. Well, they really do very, very little. And your opponent's got to attack with Landorus. Oh, and there comes the Enhanced Hammer straight away, just in case Corey didn't have few enough energy. And that would be a really good way to win. Now, the counter-argument to that is that's really 7 or 8 spots in your deck for lasers and 3 to 4 Verbank City Gym to make sure you're always getting the damage. Now, you can play less, of course, because you can recover stuff, but with Junk Hunt, but still, you want to be consistent. And, of course, Ben is using the whole Trick Shovels and Energy Denial, and every spot that he needs to use for a laser is a spot that he then couldn't use for everything else for all his other tricks. Now, an interesting play here, bringing the Landorus into the active. There's pros and cons, but here the Landorus needs 2 energy to attack, whereas there is a Landorus and energy on the bench where we need a second energy on the Landorus and an energy on the Zubat. So it doesn't really matter here, but the advantage Ben's got is that Corey could build up the Landorus on the bench, and then when it's got enough energy, attach to the Zubat and retreat, and Ben can never use Team Flare's Grunt to discard an energy attached to the active Pokemon until the Landorus comes up and starts attacking. Whereas this way, Corey has to attach 2 energy to the active Landorus in order to attack, and after he's attached 1, Ben can then use Team Flare's Grunt to discard that 1 energy. So I like the play from Ben here, bringing it into the active. There is a Crushing Hammer. And that's 0 for 4. But he's got Team Flare's Grunt. And that's exactly what I was saying. That's the advantage he has here. He knows Corey needs 2 energy in order to get attacking, but having a Landorus in the active means Corey needs to put 2 energy on the active, so you can use Team Flare Grunt to discard it, whereas if he's building up a Landorus on the bench, you can't use Team Flare Grunt to discard basic energy. You can only use Crushing Hammer. And as we've seen this game, Ben is having absolutely no luck with Crushing Hammers. Like, literally no luck. Although he's got on a Crushing Hammer and a Trick Shovel back. Now, the other thing, we know Corey has an energy in hand because he used Professor's Letter to get 2 energy on the previous turn. But he's really going to... I mean, he's going to be struggling just to get an attack off at this stage. I mean, honestly... Oh, and there comes an AZ. His best bet here... Oh, and he finally, now we're talking, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're talking. This is good. That was a really heads-up play there. And he finally gets a KO on the Bunnelby. That's why he put the 30 damage on the Bunnelby earlier in the game. An excellent, excellent play from Corey there. Really played the long game. He had the Golbat, so he used the VS Seeker to grab an AZ. That allowed him to pick up the Landorus that was stuck in the active. He immediately put a Focus Sash on the Landorus in order to block, and still no heads on Crushing Hammer. I'm pretty sure that's 0 for 5 now. 0 for 6. This is ludicrous. This is Ross luck he's having right now. It means he gets the Landorus out the active, which means he can now attack for 1 energy. He attaches the energy and a Focus Sash to, in theory... That's going to stop any Headringer shenanigans, which means that Ben is going to have to discard an energy every turn, and Corey's just going to need 1 energy a turn in order to start attacking and taking prizes. Of course, we know that Ben's got Team Flare Grunt, and Corey, sooner or later, is going to have to run out of energy. And there comes a Team Flare Grunt, and we know that Ben's got a VS Seeker in hand, so he can just do the same thing next turn if Corey has another energy. Even if Corey knocks out the Sableye, he's still only taken 2 prizes. Now, here's the thing. Ben still doesn't have his life due. If Ben... he does have beautiful, shiny energy. Oh, is that a Super Rod? And he's got an energy, and he can use Super Rod, presumably to get free basic energy just back. Life due would really... I mean, Ben seems very in control of this, as it is. But Life Dew would just give another thing, because if Ben could put a Life Dew on that Sableye, and he would have done if he'd drawn into it, that means that Corey would be KOing the Sableye now, but wouldn't be taking a prize by virtue of the Life Dew. So, okay, and here we go. KO's a Sableye, puts 30 on the 1 on the bench, and up comes Garbodor. Because he's got a Floatstone, he's got free retreat. Now, the question is, does Ben have an energy? He's going to need one, ladies and gentlemen. Now, he has got a Crushing Hammer. If he hits the Crushing Hammer... Yes! Ben hits the Crushing Hammer, ladies and gentlemen. I saw it. Oh. Did he hit a Crushing Hammer? Corey discarded it. Unless Ben is deciding which one to discard, which would possibly be, you know, if he's got something like a Lysander, he would be one. Yeah. Okay, so I can only assume he's got a Lysandre he's going to use to bring the, Oh, and another heads! All right. After whiffing on, I think it was the first 6, Ben's now starting to get on a bit of a roll. Get it? Because it's a dice. Actually, it's a die, if we're being honest. A dice is the plural. Anyway, Ben is starting to hit his Crushing Hammers. And what... The problem is, Corey has a finite amount of resources. There's only so many energy in Corey's deck. And that's a problem. Because sooner or later, one would presume, although Ben's deck's getting pretty low. Of course, Ben can use Bunnelby to guarantee that he never decks out. Ben can just put a Bunnelby active and start using the attack that, you know, puts... I want to say Rototiller, but it could be the other one. Which puts a card from your discard pile into your deck. So Ben can make sure he never decks out with Bunnelby. Corey's got to be getting pretty close at this stage, because Ben's been using Trick Shovel to get rid of a whole bunch of his cards. And if we look there, Corey's got one pretty hefty discard pile going on. So, now it may well be that Ben's life due is prized. And one of the problems when your life due is prized in a deck like this is, as I've previously said, you're not taking prizes. And when you're not taking prizes, you're not drawing cards out of your prizes. I know that seems like a fairly, straightforward and obvious thing to say, but I suppose what it means is that if your life due starts in your prizes, you have no life due. And with 6 prizes in a 60-card deck, you have got a 1 in 10 chance, a 10% chance of having your life due prize. And it makes a big, big difference. So no energy means no junk hunt. So Ben's having to just pass, and Corey's got a turn to try and get something going here. Presumably he's going to get a Golbat just to have another free retreater ready to go. And indeed, there must be no Golbats. I know we got at least one discarded with Trick Shovel earlier. Because what Corey could do is get up all the way up to Crobat here and start sniping for damage using Crobat's Skill Dive, which costs 1 energy, and because it's a non-EX Pokemon, it cannot have the attack cost increased with Headringer. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time and we are at a draw. Now, some people might be saying, and there we go. Some people might say, oh, I just watched around about a half-hour game just to get to a draw. What you got to see here was 2 very well-made decks, a very interesting deck. I know some of you have seen the Sableye deck before, but I'm sure some of you haven't. And 2 very good players and some very good play. Yes, there might have been the problem earlier. I'll have a look at that in a second. But I thought this was a really well-played game between 2 really good players. And I, for one, was very, very happy to see it. And I thank both of those people. And also, like I say, Joanna Shirley and Glenn Pugh for letting us record. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe as usual. I'm going to be back with round 4 very shortly. And I'm just going to we're going to come back with a very quick update on what actually happened earlier in the game. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have reviewed the tape, so to speak. There were a whopping 37 seconds between the 2 supporters being played. And in another wonderful piece of irony, Corey actually drew the AZ off the 2 cards he got from playing the Gets This. Let me make it very clear once again, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, it had no effect whatsoever on the outcome of the game, as I explained. Secondly, you know what it's like in a tournament. You're thinking through things. It's very easy to make mistakes in a tournament game. There is extra stress and pressure when you're being recorded, and everyone was so lovely in agreeing to be recorded. So it's a very easy mistake to make. We've all made these mistakes before. If you've never played 2 supporters in one turn, or drawn an extra card, or miscalculated damage, you clearly have not been playing the game for very long. So yes, this is confirmation that Corey did play 2 supporters in one turn. However, let me make it incredibly clear, we've all been there. It's a very easy mistake to make, and it had literally no effect whatsoever on the outcome of what I thought was a very enjoyable, very well played game. I suppose actually it's probably worth just quickly clarifying what happened at the end of the game there. The reason why it was draw quite simply is because it ran out of time. Now, when you're in Top Cut, the rules change. There must be a winner. So in Top Cut, it's the 50% rule, i.e. if one player has taken 4 or more of their prizes, over 50%, because half being free, the game counts. And if it's a tie, you keep going until the next prize. That's not the way it works in Swiss. In Swiss, a game only counts if the game has finished. Any game that has not finished essentially hasn't been played. So we're in single game, 30 minutes runs out, no game has been completed, it's as if the game was never played, and as the game was never played, there can't have been a winner. So it ends in a draw. I hope I made that nice and clear. As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Look after yourselves till next time, because round 4 will be up pretty gosh darn shortly indeed. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.